Hi, I'm Nan Simonson. I'm a nationally board certified health and wellness coach and a plant-based culinary trainer and coach, and the author of Aging Powerfully. I wrote this 6 months, began writing 6 months before I turned 70 in January of 2020. I'm about to be 74 in the beginning of January of 2025. Yay. And no, actually, it was 2021. I wrote it. Oh, man. Doesn't matter. I can never get my dates right. But it was just before I turned 70. I'll be 74 in January in just a couple of months. My point being, I wrote it because I believed after working for 4 years, 3 years at that time with a lifestyle medical practice, that people didn't have to age out. They didn't hit an age like 60, 50, 60, 70 and age out and watch everything start to decline. With lifestyle as medicine, we could ameliorate so much of what people have come to believe is just old age. It's not, it's lifestyle. So recently, I went on a journey, and I'll keep this brief because I've said it again and again. You can go back to my other podcasts relating to Dr. Brook Goldner and what she taught us in Goodby Lupus, which was that she healed herself in a 3-month period. Now it's been 19 years of aggressive uh, lupus nephritis, which meant lupus that involved her kidneys as well. They were telling her she'd be on dialysis. They were telling her she probably wouldn't live. It was pretty difficult for her. And yet she went through high school because this first diagnosis was at 16. She went through medical school and with um, brain seizures, but she did all of that, cured herself with something that is what I am focused on because I had a thing I wanted to cure myself of. I had a thing, and that was just some high numbers. I felt great because I've been whole food plant-based for 6 years. I feel like I've aged backwards, but there was something in the background, and that was a high SED rate, ERS, erythrocyte sedimentary SR, erythrocyte sedimentary rate, which is a marker for non-specific inflammation, but it was inflammation nonetheless. Usually has to do with autoimmune diseases, but that makes sense because I had high, and still do, but they're coming down, high rheumatoid factor, that's antibodies for rheumatoid arthritis, as well as high thyroglobulin, really high. And my goal, when I heard what she could do, and she's done this for thousands now because she has gone into as a medical doctor and board certified psychiatrist and trauma specialist and neurologist and cellular metabolism expert, along with her son, who also graduated from Carnegie Mellon. She did that in medicine. He did that in biology, cellular biology, and that's his name, Miracle Metabolism. And I'm going to mention that at the end and sort of tie it into things that I'm going to end with. The point is using his protocol to get ripped and lean with hyper nourishment and a couple of other components without them knowing it until years later when they had to kind of backtrack and realize this wasn't just a fluke. It wasn't just falling in love because all of this happened around the time that she got married. But it was the protocol they came up with. They tested this on people. She was an MD and he was working with clients. They looked for people with autoimmune diseases. They tested this on them for free. And they found, oh my gosh, this really is a protocol. And she's been refining and doing that ever since. It's been 19 years since she had her recovery. Well, I was determined. And so without taking one of her programs, and I'm going to say that because I want to know everything I can know, I went ahead and registered for a program she has, her 6-week rapid recovery program. I'm not sure what I'll be recovering from by then. She even said, you may not need to even come to this, but I'm going to do it anyway. I just love learning. And it's at the end of January. It'll be 6 weeks, and it will be her Goodby Autoimmune Rapid Recovery Group. I'm really excited about it. But I did this on my own simply by using her what was available. And again, you can look at my great results video, and I'll put the link on there, and I talk about the more of the specifics on this and what the results really were, but they were great results. And I was so excited about it that I decided that we were about to take a holiday. I would do what she calls step down, because the protocol is high raw, only raw, plus this hyper nourishment grouping of foods, and I'll explain that. And step down meant that you keep the hyper nourishment going, very specific, but you can add to that then some cooked foods, still whole food plant-based, and continue to heal. As a matter of fact, she has been known to say you take that hypernourishment and even add it to a standard American diet, and you're going to get better health because of what that will do for you at a cellular level, not necessarily recovery from something really catastrophic, but you will see better health. So again, the title of, well, I don't even know if I've told you, the title of today's training is Hypernourishment Out of State on a Family Vacation. There's a bit there to tease apart. For one thing, what is hypernourishment? According to her Goodby Lupus book, hypernourishment is 3 things: at least 96 ounces of water a day, preferably a gallon. Oh my gosh, you have to kind of train your body to know what to do with all of that. Number 2, high levels of omega-3 fatty acids, and no processed food, animal product, no alcohol, because those are not only inflammatory, but especially the processed foods and the oils, the other, or seed oils other than what I'm going to tell you works. And the animal products all are very high in omega-6 fatty acids. We are focusing on laser focus of omega-3 fatty acids, which are very, very, very anti-inflammatory. And then finally, at least a pound of deep leafy green and cruciferous vegetables raw. Raw, why? Because she gets results that way. She tried doing it with, oh, go ahead and steam the vegetables if you like them better, didn't get the results, because the nourishment that is afforded in those deep leafy greens as well as cruciferous vegetables is cut by 1/3 or more when they're cooked. So it's raw. So back to that, we've got omega-3s, at least a gallon of water. Well, a gallon if you're over 120 pounds. I do 115 ounces of water, and the chia and flax seeds or oil for the omega-3. So the omega-3s, the deep leafy greens, and the water. That's hypernourishment. So I did hypernourishment on this family vacation out of state. The out of state point was that we flew. If you have a car, you can take all kinds of things with you. We flew. You know the restrictions with flying. How did we do that? Well, I'll explain it. Airports and packing restrictions still made it work. We were in New Mexico. And then with family, my husband, I was married 40 years. He passed. My second husband has 2 girls. They're both 30. They're both, well, they're not both 30. They're not twins, but they are in their early 30s. They're 13 months apart. They both have families with their husbands. They both have babies. The younger one has a 10-month-old. The older one has a 12-month-old and a 5-year-old. So we were with younger people. They're not whole food plant-based strictly like my husband and I are. And we spent almost 10 days with them. So how do you do all of that? We did it and we did it beautifully. And I'll explain how we managed that. Um, okay, they did something nice, and I think I'll mention that. And that is that when we got there and we spent the first evening together with them, we had already had 3 days up in the mountains, 8,500 feet up in northern New Mexico at an alpaca ranch. Oh, do I have pictures? I don't think you can see these pictures, but one of our PowerPoint group members. And in the background, we have a group of people that are part of the PowerPoint group. Asked if I would show, they just, well, if I had had a slide, you'd be able to see it better, but can you see teeny, teeny little faces? There were four of them still at the ranch. At one time, she had 24. They bred them and they sheared them, and they're treated like family. But she is the two sisters running the alpaca ranch, and we were in an Airbnb, so we got this wonderful place called the um, barn house or alpaca barn house, which was like a barn, but it was so beautifully appointed and two-story, and it was just a great place. And they're both in their 80s and they work hard and they do well, just the two of them. But she said they're aging out. Isn't that an interesting way of looking at things? Are you going to get more alpacas? No, we're aging out. Are you going to get more dogs? They had an Alsatian and a poodle, Bernese Mountain Dog mix, gorgeous dogs. And no, we're aging out. I didn't ask, what are you going to do after this? Because basically they're aging out, but they were very, very capable. So we were at this wonderful place, and one of the older daughter's family with the 5-year-old and the baby came and stayed with us overnight. So in other words, there was a lot of food, there was a lot of family, there was a lot of divergence in terms of what people were eating and what they wanted. And I never, even though we got to the to Albuquerque, the Albuquerque airport, and before we headed up to the Airbnb up in the mountains, we stopped at a Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's, why? Because I know the place. I live 3 minutes from one, and I know exactly what to get for all those days up in the mountain. And then we would come back down to Albuquerque, and then I'd go back to Trader Joe's and fill up for the next Airbnb, which was near the older daughter's house. And the younger daughter was staying with them. Uh, and that was really fun. These two babies and all of this, and her cats, and what a great time. So, a bit of history again was that I had done the 6-week protocol. I got great results. I was on step down, but what does step down mean? I could have some cooked foods, but I was not going to stop hypernourishing. I may never stop hypernourishing. It's been 19 years of complete recovery, never getting any of the signs or the antibodies of her lupus back for Dr. Goldner. She is still hyper nourishing. And she says, why not? And that's how I feel. Why not? It's an easy way to get what some people may consider a day's worth. Actually, some people, and I'm not being snarky here, but knowing the way most Americans eat, that pound of cruciferous and deep leafy greens could represent in one day, and the omega-3s and no other oils and no other processed foods could represent what some people wouldn't even get done in a week. So on a daily basis, that much hyper nourishment, all going to your cells, all fixing what needs to be fixed, that is inflammation based, which is just about all chronic disease. Why stop? So she's been able to maintain her great health for all of these years doing that. I won't stop. So I hypernourished the entire time. What does that look like? Well, I wanted to bring my Vitamix with me, even though I knew they had a mixer at, well, There was one at the first place. I never saw the other one out, meaning a blender. Most blenders would have a hard time doing what the Vitamix does with the smoothies the way we pack them. And she recovered without smoothies because back then all she was doing was eating these as big crudité plates and then salads and guacamole. And that's what I did as well. And I'll tell you what I did when I um, got to Albuquerque, went to Trader Joe's, and some of the things I got. I got the cleaned greens, which were the kale is cruciferous, spinach is not, but it's highly nourishing, and the chia and flax whole seeds I just brought from home because they can be ground in the blender. The omega-3 fatty acids are so volatile, meaning they oxidize very easily, that if you get pre-ground, if you leave them out in the air, you lose what we're most interested in on this protocol, which is the omega-3 fatty acids. You can use ground flax and chia for the value of protein, for the value of fiber, but not for the omega-3s unless it's freshly ground. And you can use oil instead if your digestive system won't take that much fiber for her healing protocol, which is a half a cup of chia and flax, and I just mix them both together, and they're just about half and half. And that's a lot, but it doesn't bother me at all. If that did bother my digestive system, 3 tablespoons of the flax oil, it's harder to find chia oil, but that could be used, is the equivalent of a half a cup of the whole flax that is then ground. So at Trader Joe's, I got those things. I got a mass of bananas. The darker they got, the happier I was. And I brought with me what I needed to package those, just little Ziploc bags, freezer Ziploc bags, and lay them out and put them in the freezer so that I had cold fruit. I bought frozen mango, and we had that packed in a ice chest that we took up with us to the mountains, and berries for my husband. I make our muesli, whole grain, whole rolled oats that are gluten-free, and a number of other things, some currants and some nuts and things like that. And so we brought almost everything that we would eat, well, for sure in the morning. And the smoothie that I make will last me throughout the day, even though I'm still going to have a little bit of a lunch and certainly going to have dinner. The smoothies are so energizing that I found if I have them after 3 or 4, I'm just too buzzed to sleep easily. Even Dr. Goldner says she never has them for dinner because then she doesn't sleep well at night because they are energizing. That's when she, who is also on step down, she has been now for almost 19 years, that's when she has her soups or her stews or her chickpea dishes, or tofu or tempeh, things like that. And that's when she has her cooked. Well, that's pretty much what I'm doing and what I knew I would do on the holiday. The other thing that's been a real treat is the guacamole. There aren't a lot of calories. Well, there are when you add up the flax and chia, and well, that's really where you're going to get your main amount of calories, and the fruit, more so than the greens for the smoothies. But in addition to that, and the way she healed was platters of crudités, and then she would eat them by dipping them into guacamole. Well, that's what I did a lot for my lunch. I even did it for a couple of dinners where we weren't sharing a meal with the rest of the family. We had an event and then just went back to our place. And I would just do the crudités dipped in guacamole, and that was a great meal. I could eat a whole platter of cruciferous, which would be broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. I don't like them raw that much, but even carrots and other things that were dipping kinds of vegetables like jicama. I brought all of that with me. PB&J a good whole grain bread. I can't do that because of the gluten, but my husband certainly did. So we had nut butter sandwiches, and those we could travel with to the airport. I could bring my small containers of guacamole in a baggie, no problem at all, to the airport. Little 3-ounce containers of hummus to the airport, and all our fruit, all our vegetables, while other people were standing in line buying all kinds of poorly made foods, standard American diet foods. We were eating our vegetables, our fruit. I even brought a small container of soy milk so that he could put soy milk in the container of dry muesli and then have like an overnight oat experience with that, but there was no overnight there. Bringing raw nuts with us, things like that. Okay, so it was 9.5 days, 2 different Airbnbs, and the food that we made and that we brought turned out to be perfect. The smoothies we had every morning while we were up in the mountains, his older daughter, as I said, came and stayed with us with the babies. They brought some eggs and they brought something else that they would cook with it. But they did that after I made my smoothies, after Tim made his oats. And they did that because the husband and the younger or the older child wanted it. That night, though, I made whole grain lentil pasta, the fusilli pasta. Uh, well, fusilli is the curved ones. Mine were the rotini. Um, Jarred marinara. And I don't normally buy processed vegan meats, but Trader Joe's had a vegan crumble that was a lot like, and I looked at the ingredients and they were really fine. They had an oil I would not normally have used, and I wouldn't have done it if I was on the Goodby Lupus protocol, but I was on step down and I just allowed that. So I made a big pan of out of the jar marinara with the crumbles. It was just like a meat marinara with this high protein, high fiber pasta, a huge salad, some fruit, and I had a lot left over. And the fun about that was another night when we went to the family um, home, and I said, I'll bring the main course. I laid out some dry saute spinach. That means you saute a little onion and garlic in broth, and then threw in some spinach enough to wilt it, lined the bottom of a 9 by 13 pan that was at the Airbnb with this layer of spinach, and then a layer of the leftover pasta and marinara sauce. And then I looked at my website, nansimonson.com, looked at stuffed shells. You can do the same thing. And I was able to look at my ingredients for vegan ricotta. It's really good. It's tofu and white canned beans, all blended up. I had the blender with herbs and other spices and garlic, and I put that on top of the dish. So it looked like a 3-layer Italian dinner, and the ricotta gets nice and firm, but still it had a lot of tomato sauce around it, bubbling around it. It was not only beautiful, but it was delicious. And all of that I was able to do away from home, clean eating, and really nutritious. What about the meals out? Because sure, we had meals out. When we came back from the alpaca ranch into Albuquerque, it was about an hour and a half. We were hungry and we were looking for, well, what happened is coming down, there is an Indian reservation. What we didn't realize through quite a bit of mileage is that there weren't stores there. It was a reservation, but they didn't have little stores. So we were almost in Albuquerque, and and I looked up in my Happy Cow. There's an app called Happy Cow, and you can use it all over the world. And wherever you've got internet service, and it'll tell you vegan and vegetarian eateries near you, starting with the closest. and there was a little Mexican restaurant, just storefront. We went in. There really wasn't much we could get, but this is how we put our meal together. They were making fresh made corn tortillas. They had frijoles, not using lard. They had guacamole. They had salsa, and being in New Mexico, a lot of chili sauces. So we got the corn tortillas, the frijoles, oh, and some rice, Mexican rice. The rice, and I asked for, because I figured they would have this, each of us getting a plate of shredded lettuce. So we each had a plate of the shredded lettuce, all the salsa, etc. We made our own tacos in these fresh shells. It was a better meal, I think, than a lot of people had there. I'm not really saying that truthfully because they made a lot of specialties of the region, but we had a great meal. That's the kind of thing that we did the entire time we were there. We went to a fine dining restaurant. They were getting things like gnocchi and cheese and butter sauces and meat dishes and chicken dishes and seafood dishes. We stuck with what we do. So we got roasted artichoke, and it sometimes that's really greasy. It wasn't. It was even halved artichokes cooked well with the stem on them, dipping in a lemon hummus that was delicious. And there was probably oil in the hummus, but it wasn't floating in there the way you can quite often find that. A beet salad and a flatbread. They even had a gluten-free flatbread. Now, that's the worst thing we got. My husband got he got a pasta dish, but that's what I ordered. The flatbread in my mind is like getting Weber's bread because it was gluten free, but it meant that it was just basically flour and water for the crust, but it had mushrooms on it and and spinach and a number of other vegetables because I got the veggie one. And so it was almost like eating a pizza plus the artichoke plus the salad. I was in heaven. It was a far less expensive meal than everybody else's, but we were treating everybody, but that wasn't the point. It was just delicious. And then just about anywhere you travel in America, you can find a Chipotle. And we had a Chipotle lunch, which was, I used the beans, so I had both kinds of beans. Tim gets the rice, but the rice has oil in it. And then just the grilled vegetables, the fajitas and pico de gallo and guacamole, all of those things are all part of the step down program as well as whole food plant-based, and are delicious. We went to a place called Tin Can Alley, and it looked like corrugated metal of all odd angles and painted different colors. It was a really fun place. And a lot of you have places like that. We even have a place in Riverside, where I live, Riverside, California, that has a number of food vendors, and you just walk around and choose what you want. Well, they had pho there, the Vietnamese pho. I love pho. It's rice noodles. I can do it. No gluten, but rice noodles is nothing but rice noodles are nothing but water and rice, and it's rice flour. I'm now paying more attention to nourishing my body, not just feeding it, not just the macronutrients, carbohydrate, protein, and fat. I'm looking at what will the food do for me. There was another vendor who was Greek. So he made me this big, beautiful salad with some steamed potato and some quinoa and beets and, oh, just a number of things with a light lemony dressing. Well, I brought my own dressing from Dr. Goldner's Goodby Lupus Hello Delicious book. I made my own dressing and brought it with me to New Mexico. So I was able to put my own dressing on, and that worked perfect too. Are you seeing what is possible? You may think, and some people would, like, let me take it to the nth degree. I would rather be sick and die than have to eat like that. I'd rather be ill rather than have to think in advance like that. I want to walk in an airport and get their junk and feel like I'm on a holiday. You know what? That's easy to say until you're falling apart and it's too late. And then you're thinking, maybe this wasn't so fun after all. Um, we never felt deprived. We never went hungry. And we loved every meal that we had, all the way down to our PB&J. It was just quite a treat. Um, Another really important point is that you can make everything fun, not just food. For the first time in years, I went miniature golfing. We played games on a regular nightly basis. We took hikes in the woods. I love being out in nature and taking hikes. One day, Tim and I went out for a hike and we didn't come back for an hour and 45 minutes. We were off just wandering, having a great time. That's called exercise. That's called movement, but it's also called entertainment. And the interesting thing about this, and I said it to my group in the morning because I thought this was quite surprising. We travel a lot, and every time I've traveled, I come back weighing 2, 3, sometimes 4, maybe even 5 pounds more. Why? Because I eat large quantities of food to be full. You do when you're not loading your food with meat and loading it with cheese and oils, etc. So in order to be satisfied and stay full, I eat large quantities. When you eat large quantities where your food is being packed with all of these high fat ingredients, you gain weight. And it's happened every time. I got back and I 100% fully expected to weigh at least 4 pounds more. I even looked at the scale and thought that's what I saw. I was a half a pound down. Could not believe it. And we ate heartily. I mean, think of this, all of that guacamole, the pastas, the ricotta, which was somewhat calorically dense, even though not with oil. It was tofu and beans, and then all the herbs and things like that. Um, and I believe part of it has to do with, I'm looking for books, what Thomas Tadlock, and this is Dr. Goldner's love of her life, whom she married, who put her on this protocol to get lean before her wedding. He didn't say, I want a lean wife. She said, I want to get lean because we're going to Hawaii and I want a strapless mermaid dress. And so she lost a whole bunch of weight in that 3-month period. That protocol he created to get people's metabolism revved up so that he could shred them down very quickly. He worked with them in the movie industry. Here, I'll take your actor and get them ready for a movie, get them strong and get them fit and get them healthy. He's the one that came up with this protocol, but he had meat involved. He no longer has meat because she was a vegetarian, so he had to trim it down to tofu and tempeh, and then later they both realized that if they wanted even more consistent results, they didn't even need that. So I wonder if smoothies every day, all those smoothies, in spite of the fact that I was now on step down, eating some steamed food, eating some cooked food, eating a variety of things like 3 tacos at a time when I had tacos out. I wonder if my metabolism got revved up enough to be able to do that and not gain weight. Um, Maybe it was the thylakoids. Look up THYL, let me get it, LAKOIDS and human health. Thylakoids, THYLAKOIDS and human health. They are involved in a plant in the process of photosynthesis and in energy creation for a plant. Well, when we eat, and they're in all deep leafy greens, uncooked. If you have thylakoids to start every morning, which you do with that smoothie, all day long, and you're drinking it all day, the thylakoids will help slow down the digestion of fat in a good way so that you stay full longer. It mellows out your blood glucose, meaning your insulin production becomes more steady. And it has been shown to create satiety to the degree that people who start their day with leafy greens will lose weight and effortlessly because they just feel full and satisfied. Maybe it was all of that, maybe the fiber, but one thing that I know is that what I thought would have been a different turnout left me feeling good, strong, healthy, lighter. Well, not lighter, but a half a pound lighter, and certainly probably 4 pounds lighter than I would have been. And we had a great holiday. There was nothing there I would have changed, even if I wasn't on a protocol. So I wanted to share this with you. I know that I went on longer than I meant to. Um, but there are things to think about, things to learn from it, and things to consider the next time you travel, or even as you apply hypernourishment, and maybe you'll even consider her protocols, Goodby Autoimmune, Goodby Lupus, for yourself if there's something you're working on. I am in great health, but I had smolderings and I wanted smolderings gone. I didn't want something that would eventually just explode into some disease because it was there in the background. I decided, let me get rid of that. So, in other words, there could be something that you're thinking, yeah, this hurts or that hurts. I'm tired of aching. My knees. A knee that was MRI'd and showed what they called a complex compound multiple tear meniscus on my right knee stopped hurting mid protocol and hasn't hurt since. We took that hour and 45-minute walk, no problem. So you see what I mean? I'm done. Thank you for your time. I appreciate your indulgence, and consider aging powerfully. It's a good story. It's a good read. More important, consider what Dr. Goldner protocols can do for you. Her cookbook, if you're going to do the protocol, it's helpful. Goodby Autoimmune talks about the protocol and our mindset because she is also a therapist and, as I said, trauma specialist. And Miracle Metabolism was really interesting as it relates to how food affects our metabolism and therefore not only our weight, but our health. I'm done. Have a great day. I know I'm going to give me a thumbs up. Please share and subscribe, and hope to see you soon.